Hey listeners, and welcome back to the Some World podcast. I'm your host and content creator, Ben Baker. Today's episode is the first of a two-parter. It's a longer story. A novella, as they call it. It sounds so pretentious. Like you have to write it in the Renaissance or something. My name is Cagliari, and I write a novella with a quill pen. Exactly like that. This piece is called Way of the Chronic, and it's about something you can't talk about if you live in Sweden like I do. So don't tell anyone about this, okay? This story is about weed. It's like a stoner movie in literary format. It even reads in about 105 minutes, coincidentally about the length of a feature film. If you enjoy it, you can support me by purchasing the Kindle ebook version on Amazon. It's only $3, and it is correct spelling and a cover and everything. The audiobook version is also available on audiobooks.com, storytel.com, and on the Bookmate app. Now, go grab a Dr. Pepper and a bag of Lay's, salt vinegar Lay's, and enjoy part 1 of Way of the Chronic. Way of the Chronic, a novella written and narrated by Ben Baker. Prologue. In a clearing surrounded by fir trees, a man sat by a campfire, grilling a frankfurter on a stick. He really wasn't much for frankfurters. Indeed, he much preferred kielbases or chorizos, or even a simple bratwurst. But as fate would have it on this day, frankfurters were the only sausages that had been available to him. But it mattered little, since the sausage was not intended for him. He had already had a full meal, a Reuben sandwich on rye, and he had to admit it hadn't been bad. Not bad at all. For a sandwich. He wasn't a sandwich guy either. Sure, for breakfast or lunch he supposed it made sense to have a sandwich, but for dinner, he would have to pack the sandwich with a lot of food for it to be filling, but then the point of having it in a sandwich was kind of lost. In that case, you may as well put the food on a plate and eat it with a knife and fork like normal people, which is a lot easier, and probably better for the environment in some way. And it kind of irked him that they sold a sandwich for the same price as plate food nowadays. Perhaps the food content was of similar quantity, but a sandwich is a sandwich no matter how much food you stuff it with. And a sandwich simply isn't dinner. Unless you went to those crazy European countries where they eat nothing but sandwiches. Would you like the sandwich with the sandwich, Mr. Signor? He snorted sardonically while inspecting the frankfurter, shaking his head at all the funny business that goes on in the world. Suddenly, he heard a rumble in the bushes, threw a quick glance at his awaited guest, and nodded with a faint precognizant smile on his face. Welcome, he thought. Welcome to the way. Part 1. I can't believe nobody's smoking marijuana on this Greyhound. On the night before Christmas, a Greyhound bus came speeding along a quaint country road. The road was desolate but for the bus and the occasional animal lying around, split open and torn apart, entrails and blood covering the ground like some misplaced Christmas decorations. The driver, a man in his 40s and with the podcast Stuff You Should Know, playing in his Sony WH-1000XM2 Bluetooth headphones, stared emptily at the white line swooshing by on the road before him. Just behind the driver sat a blonde middle-aged woman. Stress lines covered her face. She wore a gray pantsuit and was heavily involved in a conversation on her iPhone X A1901 model. "Chris," she said in a pressing tone, "could you please contact HR and see if Steve or Carrie is available?" A few seats behind her sat two young men, one of which wore sweatpants and a large hoodie, while the other one wore rather unspecific clothing but for a cap on his head. Only sweatpants had a smartphone, the brand and model of which is too embarrassing to mention, and they were watching YouTube videos of people hurting themselves, laughing wildly at every climax. Across from the two young men, an older man of distinguished posture, clad in suit and tie, was emailing on his 12.9-inch iPad Pro, A1670 model, 4G version. Behind him sat a woman in her mid-20s, all clad in black but for her beige leather jacket. Tattoos covered large sections of her visible body. She was lost in some mobile game on her Samsung Galaxy S9, Nougat 29. The final passenger sat at the very back of the bus, delved in shadow. One could not see his face, only the menacing size of his leather boots and the wideness of his shoulders, clad in a red flannel shirt. In his hands rested a book, which he appeared to be reading. Suddenly and without warning, the engine gave out. The driver, who was learning things about dark matter that he would not retain even 5 minutes later, was so perplexed that he went as far as to take one plug out of his ear. The passengers were all startled by the sudden clucking, suspending their activity to anticipate the development. Well, all except for Tattoo, who threw no more than a quick glance up front before returning to her phone, her limber fingers flying over the screen as if whatever game she was playing was played with her life at stake. The driver pulled over to the side of the road. "I'll see what's going on," he mumbled inaudibly to the passengers without looking at them, and left the driver's seat to head for the door. "I'm sorry," said Blondie, interrupting the driver's exit. "What was that you said?" "I'm sure it's fine," mumbled the driver, even fainter, and left the vehicle before any further inquiries could be made. Moments later, he re-entered. "Okay, so," he began, "the engine is broken. I'm going to have to call service." Blondie frowned. "But you were only out there for a few seconds. Did you troubleshoot at all?" The driver made a psh sound, gesturing defeatedly. "What do you want me to tell you?" he asked. Tattoo, who had now caught on to the situation, broke in. "That you can fix the bus and get us out of here?" The driver shrugged. "I could say that, but that wouldn't automatically make it true." Immediate sighs and grunts were heard from the passengers. Suit joined the conversation. "Go ahead and call service, and we'll hope for the best." "Well, how long is that going to take?" asked Blondie frustratedly. "I have an important meeting to get to." "I don't know," said the driver. "Maybe a while, maybe longer." He brought out his phone. "Damn," he mumbled to himself while dialing. "I felt something was wrong just before we left. The mechanic was right there. I could have asked him to take a look. He even offered, now that I think about it. Don't know why I said no. Another bus is right there and available. Wouldn't have been any trouble at all just switching. They even asked if I wanted to switch buses since the other one just got maintenance. Oh well, guess I should trust my instincts more often. Glad I'm not a pilot." Each beep of the phone seemed like an eternity in itself, driver and passengers all growing increasingly impatient. After several beeps, Suit approached the driver, and with a reassuring smile he asked, "Is there another number we could try?" Yeah, sure," the driver replied, beginning to move his finger to end the call. Lightning fast, Suit had caught his hand, holding it not hard, but firm. "Leave it," he whispered, still smiling, but with clenched teeth. "We'll use my phone for the other call. Let's keep all lines open." The driver rummaged through the driver's seat to reappear with a piece of paper with a number scribbled on it, which Suit dialed hurriedly before switching phones with the driver. This call only took 4 beeps before there was an answer. "Dispatch to driver." "Yeah, hi Ava. How are the holidays treating you?"
"How may I be of service?"
"Yeah, problem is engine went totally bust or something. I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere with 6 passengers. I need someone to come out here and take a look at it." There was a long silence, so drawn out that what began as mere worry had soon budded out to fear in the hearts of everyone present. "Ava?" said the driver.
There's a problem," replied dispatch, her voice as dry as dead oak on the prairie. "First off, it's the holidays, so service will have a delay of at least 2 hours. Secondly, there's a grade 2 storm approaching your area. We aren't allowed to send service before it's passed."
The driver threw a nervous glance at his passengers, fearing the overreaction about to hit him as he'd tell them the bad news. I haven't seen signs of any storm," the driver exclaimed. Suddenly, harsh winds tugged at the bus as the sky opened up to violent rain while thunder struck unforgivingly. "So what timescale are we talking about?" asked the driver.
"Well, it's up to the storm, obviously."
"Yeah, obviously. So, how many hours, roughly?" There was a beep as dispatch ended the call. The driver nodded. "Okay, Ava," he said loudly into the void, as if the call had never even ended. "You take care now. Yes, thanks a lot. I know, you don't have to thank me. Yeah, it's totally those other people's fault. See you soon. But you're married. Well, okay then." He lowered the phone and stared at the passengers for a moment, unable to make a sound.
"What?" implored Blondie. "What did they say?"
The driver hesitantly answered, "They forgot to run a maintenance check before we left." Can you believe that? Holidays, I guess. People are busy and want to get home to their families. We're stuck for at least 2 hours before service can get here, which is further delayed by the storm. We're going to be here a while.
"No!" yelled Blondie. "I have a meeting. This can't be."
"I don't know what to tell you," said the driver. "This is a freak occurrence."
"You're a freak occurrence."
Suits stretched out his arms wide.
Okay, everybody calm down,"
Sweatpants chimed in. "Yeah, I know we're all stressed out and want to get places, but it is what it is, right?" Blondie sneered at him.
"What place do you have to be that's so important? Your dealer?"
Sweatpants grew morose. "No, my daughter is spending what is probably her last Christmas at the cancer hospital, and I want to get there before she passes away." Blondie was taken aback as the other passengers looked upon her with scorn, judging her to shame.
"Oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said," she blurted. I get like this. It's not me."
Sweatpants gestured disarmingly. "No, chill, it's not true. I made that shit up. You were right the first time. I'm going for a big re-up, yo." The lady grew red hot.
"Oh, that's low. What a dick move."
Suits tried to calm everyone down with arm gestures and mumbles. The man in the back kept his eyes firmly on the book in his hands. If he was somehow troubled by the predicament, he hid it well. "Whoa," whispered Cap suddenly. "What's up, dude?" asked Sweatpants cautiously.
"Is he all right?" wondered Blondie. "Don't tell me he has some condition."
"No," said Cap and held his phone upward, shaking it.
"YouTube's not working."
Suit flinched. "You're not getting service?" Cap nodded nonchalantly while seeking to reestablish a connection. As Suit got out his phone to unsuccessfully get reception on his iPad, and Blondie and Tattoo doing the same, Sweatpants looked out through the window at the howling wind and the whipping rain, and came to a startling realization. "It's the storm," he said. Suit turned to him and stopped. Then he nodded, nibbling on his own finger.
"Damn it, I think you might be right. I'm not one for wild speculation, but the wind could somehow be blocking the signal from reaching our devices."
Blondie said breathily,
"My phone's not working either. I can't make calls. Not text either. I've heard about service being so bad, but I never thought it would happen to me."
"It gets worse." It came from the front. Everyone, except for the mysterious reading man, turned to the driver. "Since we don't know how long we'll be stuck here, we have to save power," he went on. "I suggest we use up the rest of our phone power and then only charge my work phone for calls from the station." Cap immediately questioned the proposition.
"But I only have 12% left. I mean, I can download some offline stuff, but that's not going to be even close to 2 hours worth." "Yeah, mine's at 15%, added Tattoo. "You're expecting us to sit here for X amount of hours without our phones." Suit sighed. It's not great news, but it's the reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, said the driver. It's that or no heating.
I honestly don't know what's worse, mumbled Cap. Driver's right, said Blondie, getting a concurring nod from Sweatpants, leading Cap to surrender and slump down in his seat. Fuck, hissed Tattoo and walked briskly back to her seat, to lay down under her jacket in frustration. Don't talk to me, please, she said and buried her head in the corner like a child who doesn't get its way. The others started back for their seats when a question from Suit stopped them dead. What about food? The driver had already sat down and gotten out a pastrami sandwich from Trader Joe's. He looked at his passengers, his countenance ridden with guilt. He took a hesitant but quick bite, as if the presence of the pastrami somehow threatened the delicate order in the buzz. One had to, if one possessed any shred of responsibility, remove such a divisive element with expediency. He shrugged apologetically and took another bite. It was his duty. At the mention of food, Tattoo had lifted her head, and now from her seat in the background, observed her fellows with keen interest, her gaze alternating between the group on the one hand and the pastrami sandwich on the other. Sweatpants smiled. No worries, people. We got everybody covered. He signaled to Cap, who produced a backpack from the hand luggage compartment. As he opened it and turned it over, potato chips, candy bars, soda, cookies, even a cake fell out onto his seat. Ho, 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 bitches, he mused, smiling and nodding self-affirmingly at his serendipitous choice and volume of commerce. Yeah, said Sweatpants. We got some munchies. If y'all get hungry, just ask. Well, thank you, said Suit, moved by the gesture. I greatly appreciate that. I was thinking of buying something more than that Subway Melton coffee I had a while back, but I didn't plan to get stuck for God knows how long. Gentlemen, this is truly a gesture in the spirit of...
Tattoo had reached the treasure trove, rudely elbowing past Suit on her way. Dibs on the salt vinegar lace. A hand clutched her wrist. Blondie.
When it comes to snack food, I can only eat salt vinegar lace. I have a thing in digestive system thing. Sugar and stuff.
What thing is that? The driver had reached the scene, the pastrami sandwich resting safely in his relaxed hand. He turned to Sweatpants and Cap, pleading. Would you guys mind if I had it? Pastrami and salt vinegar lace go so well together. I only ask for a handful. Sweatpants quickly grabbed the bag from Tattoo's hand, gesturing for Blondie to let go, which she did retortlessly. Yo, said Sweatpants. Y'all gotta calm down.
Yeah, said Cap. We thought you people could be civilized and shit. Now it's like we gotta act like some snack police.
Yes, agreed Suit.
We're all hungry, but there is no reason to act so benightedly.
He smiled.
Fortunately for me, I'm a barbecue guy, so I don't have to join this battle of wills. May I?
Sweatpants handed him the bag of barbecue lace. He then opened the bag of salt vinegar chips and whistled to the driver, who was disappointedly returning to his seat, but now stopped to turn back around. Hold out your hand, said Sweatpants. What? Asked the driver. Hold out your hand. The driver, confused, did as asked, and Sweatpants shook out a handful of chips in his open palm. The gratitude needed no words. Sweatpants smiled reassuringly. I know how awesome pastrami and salt vinegar go together. Enjoy. The driver, his mouth stuffed with chips and pastrami, nodded graciously and hurried back to his seat, mumbling something that sounded like thanks. Sweatpants went on to ration out salt vinegar chips to the two ladies. Blondie was sincerely grateful, while Tattoo said only, Gracias. A thank you means nothing if you say it in another language, mumbled Cap. That's right, said Suit, as if recalling something. I was once told that saying thank you in another language means that you are unwilling to say thank you sincerely. I think it was a professor of language who told me this, he concluded, waving a barbecue chip.
Yeah, me too, said Cap.
But Tattoo could not hear what they were saying on the way back to her seat, for the chips she was chewing were crunching too loudly in her ears. Everyone went back to their seats, turning to the dying light of their device screens, the doomsday clock counting down to charge oblivion. The wind was strengthening, and the rain attacked the windows like horror movie ghasts looking for a way inside. "Yo," said Cap to Sweatpants when they were resting comfortably, sharing a bag of Skittles while watching offline videos. "Should we ask if the quiet guy back there wants any?" Sweatpants looked to the back of the bus. The man was still occupied with his book, sitting absolutely still. "Yeah," Sweatpants said before directing his voice at the mystery man. "Yo, you back there, you want some chips or candy or something?" The man did not answer. "Okay," Sweatpants said as he turned back to the phone. "Let us know if you want anything, drink or whatever." He quickly interrupted himself with the laughter produced by a surfer being swallowed by a wave and reappearing with his shorts down to his ankles. As the evening carried on, the percentage displays on the devices went from green to orange and then to red, before the screens vanquished their spirits, turning as black as the depths of the forest along the road. Hopeless sighs were heard throughout the bus, and comfort turned to deadly boredom within minutes. Cap, unable to accept the idea of phonelessness, yelled to the driver, "Yo, could we just charge one full charge more?" The driver shook his head apologetically. "No can do. I mean, it was real nice of you guys to give me the chips and everything, but we don't know for how long we'll be out here. And if you get to charge, everyone else should get to charge too." "Fuck yeah!" Tattoo hollered defiantly from way back. Sweatpants patted Cap once on the shoulder. "He's right. We have to conserve energy and shit." "Yeah, you're right," sighed Cap, pulling his cap over his eyes, sighing once more, deeper. Sweatpants' face lit up. "Yo, don't you got that little bag of chronic left?" Cap jumped out of his seat, re-energized. As he looked through his pockets, Suit appeared beside Sweatpants. Did I hear something about some chronic?" Sweatpants nodded, smiling. "Yeah, man. We're about to light up if he can find it." "Would you mind if I took a hit or two? I'm so sorry to ask. You've already given so much." "No problem, man. Where we're from, sharing is caring." "I will reward you for this," said Suit, his voice trembling. "Can I get in on the action, too?" The driver had seamlessly joined the party, the pastrami sandwich in his hand, now roughly half-eaten. Cap stopped searching for a moment, turning to the driver. "If I can charge my phone, you can get in." The driver briefly deliberated with himself before replying, "Done." The phone appeared in front of his face in less than a second. "Hey," he said, backing off while gesturing with his arms. "That's if you find it." "No," said Cap defiantly. "Plug it in, then I'll keep looking." The driver smiled slyly. "How do I know that this isn't some elaborate hustle to get your phone charged? How do I know that there's any weed to begin with?" "You can believe whatever you want," said Cap, noticeably annoyed. "But you plug that phone in right now, or you're not getting shit. Simple as that." The driver relaxed. Uncompromising. "You drive a hard bargain. I'll plug it in." He gave Cap a serious look. "Find that chronic, man. We all need it." "Damn straight." They bro-fisted, nodding assertively to each other. Blondie had turned over in her seat, her elbows on the backrest. "I can't believe you people are about to smoke marijuana on a Greyhound." Sweatpants chuckled. "I can't believe nobody's smoking marijuana on this Greyhound yet." "I'm a lawyer," replied Blondie. "Yeah, and I'm a Joint Chief of Staff," said Cap, still searching for his missing chronic, but smiling at his own wit. "What, you want to see my license? Do you need a license to be a killjoy nowadays?" Once again, his own words made him grin. Blondie's eyes narrowed. "You boys could be getting into trouble. Are any of you on parole?" Sweatpants waved dismissively. "No, but weed is legal in our state anyway, so that doesn't matter, lady." "I've studied law myself," said Suit while trying to avert his rudely but helplessly impatient eyes from Cap in his search.
It's not my profession, but I know enough to say with confidence that no judge would fail to understand our predicament, regardless of legal status. Stuck in a storm, unusual circumstances. No service, said Sweatpants. Cruel and unusual punishment. Yes, Suit went on. It could in fact be illegal to hinder us from smoking the reefer under these conditions. Blondie sighed and massaged her temple before sitting back down. I don't know where you guys studied law, but whatever. The men were all amused. Cap held up, shaking his head. I've gone through all my clothes in my backpack. I can't find it anywhere. I must have forgot it at Sierra's. She talks too fucking much. I get caught up. I only have this. He displayed a rolling paper. Sweatpants gave a nod of harsh acceptance. Well, that's that. Sorry, guys. They all uttered disappointed profanities while reality sunk in. Cap looked like he could drive his head through the window. It's cool, man, Sweatpants reassured him. Yeah, I'm thankful anyway, said Suit. The driver hesitated a second, but then said, So, you want your phone back? Cap flared up. That wasn't the deal. It was full charge whether I find it or not. The driver gestured. But if there's no chronic, the contract is null and void. Bullshit, Blondie said without looking up. I heard everything loud and clear. You're obligated by oral agreement to charge the man's phone, although I see that it isn't wise in terms of energy conservation. A deal is a deal nonetheless. There you go, Cap said with triumph in his voice, before realizing that he was not in a good mood at all, and once again grew sullen. Guys, said a female voice. They all turned to the voice simultaneously. Tattoo was standing in front of them, holding out her hand. In it lay 2 generous buds of weed. Maybe we could use this, she said thoughtfully. My boyfriend gave it to me as a present, but I don't smoke that much. She shrugged, raising her eyebrows. Sweatpants and Cap sighed in relief. Suit clenched his fists in victory. We're back in the game, yelled the driver. Tattoo smiled warmly and handed the buds to Sweatpants, who bowed his head in gratitude. Giving and receiving, said Suit ceremonially, standing beside them like a minister. That is what the holidays are all about. Amid the celebrations, Sweatpants suddenly froze. He turned to Cap. Did you happen to have a filter somewhere? Cap, who immediately recognized the problem, clasped his forehead. Shit, he said with his teeth clenched. That too. Fuck. Yeah, we need a filter, said Suit, troubled. What can you make a filter out of? Asked the driver, and gestured to Sweatpants to give him some more salt vinegar lays, with a keep it comin' nod at the end. Sweatpants, holding out the bag of chips to the driver, not unlike a master would his dog treats, replied, Well, the paper must be firm. But not too firm, added Cap. It also has to be of the right length, unless someone has a pair of scissors or something else sharp to cut it with. Tattoo went through the pocket of her leather jacket and produced a tiny pair of nail clippers. Suit pulled out a playing card, a 7 of hearts. How about this? Will this work? Maybe, Sweatpants said hopefully. That just might work. Tattoo took the card from Suit and niftily cut out a long rectangle. Per Sweatpants' instructions, the driver got a pad of stationery which Sweatpants laid down on his seat. He got to his knees while the others gathered around him. If any of the passengers had thrown a glance to the back of the bus, they would have noticed the mysterious man in the back, darting an eye at the events unfolding, and gently, slowly putting the book away to observe them, as if his interest had been piqued, as if he wanted to see where they were going with this. Sweatpants crumbled the buds and folded the paper with precision. As he started rolling up the filter, a dark and heavy yet strangely relaxed voice said, almost nonchalantly, It's not going to work. They all threw their heads to the back of the bus. The man was still sitting in his seat, his wide shoulders sticking out so far that it would be impossible not to forcefully graze him if one foolishly attempted to pass. Sweatpants, startled into a dumbfounded silence, finally replied, And why is that? The man let out a single low, nearly arrogant chuckle before turning serious. Because for one, the only replacement for a real filter are those paper things on the inside of cigarette packs. The thickness and shape make them ideal, and only minor modifications by scissors, or even better, razor, are necessary. And plain processing renders low toxicity, minimizing physical harm. He shot them a look through his sunglasses. Secondly, it's not going to burn. The confidence of Sweatpants was waning. He licked his lips. What do you mean? The man raised an eyebrow. Because what you're holding in your hand, from the smell and texture I can gather from over here, is sativa siccum, one of the hardest burners there is. He leaned forward to let one of his forearms rest against the seat in front of him. And the paper is organic, which, admittedly, means it's free of harsh pesticides and toxic fertilizers. Unfortunately, it also means that it burns slower than most other kinds of paper. You'll need tobacco to liven it up, filter or no. The combination of sativa siccum and organic rolling paper is doomed to fail. The man leaned back into his seat and picked up his book once more, paying no mind to the puzzled faces of his fellow travelers. Suit turned to Sweatpants. Is this true? He asked, his voice tentative and secure. Sweatpants began, turning his gaze downward in a pensive pause. I don't know. He looked back up at Suit and repeated himself, almost apologetically. I don't know. The bus turned quiet, no one quite knowing the next course of action. Suddenly, Cap spoke, determinedly and forcefully. I think we should roll it anyway. Suit opined. Are you sure? What if he's right? Then we'll burn the reefer and ruin it. Tattoo filled in. Yeah, and then we're stuck here for hours without the possibility to do anything fun whatsoever. He might still be wrong, though, said the driver, nodding to Sweatpants to ask if it was okay for him to grab a Dr. Pepper from the snack bar. Sweatpants nodded okay. He then sighed, calm but accepting of the hard wager that had been thrust upon them. Nobody's wrong here, said Sweatpants. It's not easy to choose a side, but I know this. We have searched through every nook and cranny of this bus, and this is what we got. And if that's true, there's no reason to not try to roll it anyway. I say we roll it. Suit and Tattoo were swayed by the powerful argument of Sweatpants. They nodded in agreement. A faint hope had been rekindled. Sweatpants turned back to the buds and the paper on the pad on the seat. Hey, said Cap, leaning in closer. This has to be your best one, like ever. Sweatpants nodded, doing his best to hide his worries. I know. He gulped and was unable not to look over to the reading man, and although it was impossible to tell from the sunglasses, Sweatpants felt watched by eyes saying, I told him, but he didn't listen. There was no judgment upon the man's face, no disappointment, but a cold, dispassionate sense of knowing, which, in a way, was worse than judgment. He shook it off and directed his attention back to the cut-up playing card between his fingers, but he could not let go of the feeling that this was the moment of truth in his joint-making life, as if that first monstrosity his brother had bullied him for back when he was 15, Frankenstein's blunt he had tauntingly called it, and all the other sins had led up to this defining event. Somewhat shaky, he began to massage the filter, loosening it up enough so that it would give in both directions. He did not quite understand why filters needed to be folded both ways, but his brother had done it before him, and their father before him, and every other person he had ever seen roll a joint had done it too. It was stiff, very stiff. I don't know if this is going to work, he thought to himself, but after a few more tugs the card gave, and he could begin to shape it to his will. It's not going to work. The words from the reading man piercing his soul. It's not going to burn. Sweatpants wondered if the man was indeed right. I mean, he sounded real like Noe and stuff, Sweatpants thought nervously. And so calm. I don't think I've ever seen anyone be so calm about anything. Well, there was that time Dad was sure that flipping a light switch on and off drains the bulb faster, And Mom tried to explain to him that that was just a myth people tell their kids so they won't play with the Switch. Yeah, Dad hadn't been more sure about anything in his whole life, and that proved to be wrong. So I guess the guy could be wrong, but he's way cooler than Dad. Way cooler than me. Wow, to be like that guy. I kind of wish I was like him. Then my life would be much better. I'm pretty sure about that. You're squeezing the paper. It's about to break, dude. With a flinch, Sweatpants returned to the present moment. It was Cap that said it. Shit, Sweatpants gasped. Sorry about that. No pressure, kid, said the driver, who was sitting a couple seats down, holding his driver's jacket in his one hand and taking the last bite of the best pastrami sandwich of his entire life with the other, tapping the floor spasmodically with his shiny black leather shoes, his eyes nervously darting left and right, only focusing in short moments. Take your time. Amazingly, the high pressure that Sweatpants unconsciously had applied to the small piece of carton had shaped it into something that could at least be conjectured to resemble a spiral. It didn't stick at the end, obviously, impossible as it would be with that sort of material, but Sweatpants managed to create a thin groove that captured the curve in a gentle but secure 30-degree grip. Impressive, said Suit, his head now hovering just above Sweatpants' graceful fingers. Sick, Tattoo chimed in. That's the filter, breathed Sweatpants tensely. Now for the paper. He glanced quickly to the back of the bus and thought for a moment that the reading man gave him a subtle, approving nod, but it must have just been his imagination. The man could not look any less interested in what was happening in the external world. No, he nodded, thought Sweatpants, whose self-suggestion took root surprisingly easy. He nodded. Sweatpants smiled. He held the rolling paper between his thumbs and index fingers, with additional back support by the middle fingers. So what happens now? Asked Suit, curious like a child who is a nerd. Sweatpants took a deep breath. I'm about to make the crease. The angle of the crease determines everything. Cap filled in. The right angle also depends on the amount of quantic. So it's like a function? Asked Suit. I guess you could say that, said Cap pensively. I don't know what that means, but it definitely sounds like it's true. You know, I'm learning so much here, said Suit, beaming with excitement. Sweatpants asked Cap to crumble up the weed, and eyeing the green granulate, sizing it up, he made a rather thin crease, so thin that there was a possibility that it wouldn't wrap around the filter, let alone contain the weed. Not knowing much about the details here, said Suit, stroking his chin. I dare say, bold move. Sweatpants began to sprinkle the weed onto the paper. The amount of chronic will not allow me to make the crease too thick or the angle too steep. He shot Suit a sharp look. Once the crease is made, it's damn near impossible to ever readjust it correctly. You usually just take a new paper if you fuck it up. But here and now, Suit concluded, we're not afforded that luxury. That's right. A joint that's too wide doesn't work very well. I mean, I can't explain it like other people can, like geometric things and stuff, maybe, but it's just a fact. Nothing beats experience, offered Suit, before apologetically waving for Sweatpants to not let him interrupt anymore. The paper, filled with the chronic, now lay on the stationery. Sweatpants put the filter in position and carefully picked up all the parts. He couldn't help but to look the reading man's way, but quickly caught himself and tried to concentrate on the task, which was not an easy thing to do. If he had paid less mind to the man and more to the filter, he would have noticed that the sharp groove holding it together was indeed moving, ever so slightly, out of its stabilizing grip. Sweatpants' hands were trembling. Cap gently grabbed his wrist. Keep cool, man, he said. You got it. Tattoo placed a hand on his shoulder. You were born to do this, dude. He began folding, moving his thumbs against the index fingers, with the paper stretching in between. Evenly and smoothly he stretched the paper ever more, pulling it tight, packing it like a bale of hay. Suit gasped. That looks like a real joint, like the ones you see in the movies. Damn, son, said Tattoo. You got some skills, yo. We all about packing it tight where we from, said Cap, nodding at his friend's ostensible excellence. And excellent it was, until the filter broke. Moving the joint along his tongue only moistened the slightest, which is customary but far too often disregarded. He was just about to close the cone when his ad hoc stabilizer collapsed under the pressure of the dense body, drawing out the spiral and pointing outward like a crooked tree branch. "Wait," a voice from the back. The reading man was standing up now, holding out his hand in an ambiguous gesture, both pleading and commanding. Sweatpants froze, his tongue still sticking out of his mouth, eyes turned wholly sideways. "You rolled it with your index fingers," the man said calmly, and took a step out from his seat into the aisle, the sound of his boot hitting the floor and hollowly reverberating throughout the bus. Sweatpants unfroze, looked to the man, looked down at the joint, put the joint down on the stationery, and got up so that he was facing him. The man continued. "You roll with force from your index fingers for optimal tightening, keeping a constant pressure from 4 intersecting points of contact. This strengthens the overall surface area, but weakens the foundation. That is why your creative filter work would never withstand the persistence of the dense body of Sensimea." "The sense of what?" mumbled Tattoo to herself, biting her nails. "Your proximal interphalangeal joint, the one in the middle, is running the show, moving in a tight curve along the shape of the thumb. This is wrong. For an optimal roll, don't move or apply any pressure with your index fingers. The index finger should be passive." Sweatpants frowned. Cap momentarily took off his cap, shaking his head. "What's this dude talking about? Not move the index fingers. The index fingers are as important as the thumbs." Suit joined the conversation, scratching his nose and his other arm clutching his chest. "Yeah, I'm thinking that applying force with the thumb, but not applying an equal force with the index finger, would push the index finger back onto the middle finger, that would collapse into the ring finger, and so on and so forth." The finger that had been scratching his nose rose into the air. "Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Sir Isaac Newton." The man gave off a hardly audible sigh, as if he had heard it 1,000 times before, and walked slowly toward the passengers. "Well, Newton wasn't wrong," he said in a detached tone. He nodded at Suit. "Could I see one of those playing cards?" Suit quickly grabbed a card from his pocket, a 7 of spades, and handed it graciously to the man, who held out the card in front of him and rolled it in one forceful sweep into a conical spiral, entirely without edges or ridges along its smooth, shiny texture. And he didn't move his index fingers. They all stared in disbelief. "No way," burst out Cap. "How did you do that? And you didn't even move the index fingers. What the fuck, yo?" Suit and Tattoo exchanged a glance. "I say those are some strong fingers," said Suit, nodding affirmingly. "Yeah," said Tattoo. "Bet he placed the base real good." The man held out the spiral to Cap, who took it and observed it. "This is all smooth, like perfect smooth," he whispered admiringly. Suit raised a hand. "Could I see that?" "Yeah, take a look at this, man," said Cap, and threw the card to Suit, who caught it and took out his phone. "Fortunately, I shut it off earlier, so I have a few % left before it dies completely." Suit activated the digital camera and magnified the spiral. "This is folded in a fractal sequence." He looked closer. "The golden ratio." Tattoo took a look, and was instantly mesmerized by the symmetry and beauty of the spiraling card, curving inward as if approaching infinity. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "But if you don't move the index finger or force it in any way, how can you roll it so hard?" Suit was flustered. "It should just be a mess. I saw your index fingers. They were completely loose, passive. That's incredible." "It's not possible," said Sweatpants so suddenly, and with such conviction, that he caught everyone's instant attention. He looked seriously at the mystery man, the rolling man. "It's like that guy in the suit said. There has to be some force coming from somewhere to act against the force from the thumb, right?" "You're almost there," said the man in his strangely detached yet present way. Sweatpants pressed his thumbs against his index fingers, as hard as he would if rolling one up. He tried not moving the index fingers, but let them simply rest in place while the thumb kept on pressing. It felt awkward and uncanny. But there's something there, he thought. Something tells me I should keep going. He kept rolling air, and after a while he could feel his hands relaxing. The thumb slid down further and further and soon touched the middle finger is taking the pressure. He turned once more to the man. It only looks like you're rolling against your index fingers, but the middle fingers are doing all the work, from a hidden position. The man brought his sunglasses to the tip of his nose, his emotionless eyes staring into sweatpants. Correct, he said. Well done. Sweatpants tried to hide his pride at the compliment, but failed. The man turned so that he was addressing everyone. Now for the situation at hand. I suggest you do it over, but with tobacco in a filter made from the flap of a cigarette pack. Sweatpants frowned confusedly. But we have neither of those. No, you don't. He pointed to Blondie, who was sitting in her seat with her back to the rest of the passengers. But she does. Seeing only the back of her head, it was easy to tell that she froze, knowing well that she was the one being addressed. She briefly attempted to ignore it, but gave up and turned. What? Me? I don't know what you're talking about. The man took a step closer to her. But you do. When I stepped onto this bus, I caught a whiff from your direction, one of cigarette smell coupled with menthol gum. Throughout the evening, you have been fidgeting with your hand in your right pocket, as if there is something you want to bring out, and you have been looking impatiently at the doors as if thinking of going outside. To do what? Blondie shook her head. No, I just get bored in here. Wanted some fresh air is all. The man smiled diminutively. Who goes out for fresh air in the middle of a storm, if not a smoker? Blondie defiantly stood up. No, I only wanted to go outside to see if I could get reception. The man pointed to the phone in her hand. But your phone's dead. Blondie opened her mouth as if to speak, but opted instead to remain silent. She sighed and stuck her hand in her pocket, bringing out a pack of Marlboros. I only have one left, she said emptily. I only smoke when I'm stressed. I'm not really a smoker. But right now I really need it. The man came closer. Do you? You don't think that perhaps there is a better alternative? Blondie looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiled. Isn't there something else you'd rather smoke? No, What you really want is what's in that joint. Isn't that why you smoke cigarettes in the first place? To stay away from the chronic? No, that would be silly. Cigarettes are much more harmful. Yet you smoke them. She fell silent again. Then she spoke. I smoked in college. A lot. I loved it so much. If it wasn't for the chronic, I would not be where I am today. After my law degree, when I started working, I hardly smoked at all. But one night after a party with some old friends, I had a really bad high. Anxiety, depression, self-doubt. It was like the chronic told me who I really was, and I didn't like what it said. The man nodded understandingly. Softly, he asked, What did it say? In a trembling voice, Blondie replied, It said that I'm too focused on getting ahead, never in the present. That I think achieving and winning make me a better person, or worth more as a human. It said that I tell myself this lie because I have things in my life that I'm afraid to address. He leaned in closer. What things? That I really wish I had taken that year off studying to go to Europe. I had a thing with an English exchange student, and then he went back home and I never saw him again. Now I live in a nice house, make good money, and I'm never at risk of being out of a job. But I'm a lonely soul, married to work. Lots of credentials, but no experience of living. She sighed deeply. And now I just want a cigarette. She relaxed into her seat, emotionally emptied, and looked out the window. The man nodded thoughtfully and bent slightly forward, with his arm on the top of her seat. I'm sorry to hear about your problems, lady. but that cigarette won't solve any of them. A bad high is a bad high, but you don't fight it by running away. You fight it by having more good highs. Give us that cigarette, and I will give you not only a good high, but a high unmatched by any other, ever." She sat in silence for some moments, staring straight ahead into the back of the seat in front of her, her facade of toughness all but obliterated, then held out the cigarette pack to the man without turning her head. "You win," she said with a defeated smile on her face. The man accepted the pack and turned to the others, holding it up. "And that goes for the rest of you too. But if we do this, we're going to do it right. Given the amount of chronic and the slight disadvantage of a makeshift filter, from where I'm standing it looks like you'll have about 4 heavy drags each, so we better make every drag count. I'll need to subject the paper to some heat to convert it back to its original shape. It's not ideal, but it'll do. But where's the joint?" Everyone, spellbound by the man's penetrative sense of psychology, woke from their trance. Their eyes darted to both ends of the bus and quickly stopped on the driver, in the driver's seat, just about to light up the joint. "No!" they all yelled, reaching in the air for him. Before they had finished yelling, the man had reached the driver and was holding the joint. He had overtaken it so quickly and gracefully that no one had even noticed it until they saw it dangling between his fingers. "You sealed it," he calmly stated to the driver. The driver took out his earplugs. "I'm sorry, what?" "You sealed the cone." "Oh, this? Yeah, did I miss something? I'm listening to stuff you should know. I download all the episodes just in case of situations like these. You guys were talking about something and I thought, wow, these guys sure do love to talk, so hey, I might as well do the deed and finish it up for y'all." The man stood silent. Cap's forehead wrinkled deeply as he grasped the reality of the situation. He exclaimed, "Hey, have you been listening to the podcast on the emergency phone? While the rest of us get nothing. I thought bus drivers were cool, man." The driver put his head to the side and shrugged. "Well, since it's the emergency phone, it needs to be charged every so often, so I might as well use it while it's charging." Blondie frowned. "But then it uses energy, so it takes longer to charge." "The law of conservation of energy," Suit declared. "The first law of thermodynamics." "The thermo what?" Tattoo said to herself, scratching her nose. "Oh," said the driver, looking away. "I didn't think about that." The man tipped his sunglasses, staring harshly at the driver. "But you did think about that, didn't you?" he asked. "You know very well that consuming energy costs, as well as you know that no man finishes another man's roll without permission." "Yeah, it's not credible," said Cap from the back. "People don't just pick up other people's joints and finish them. I don't believe that story. He knew what we were talking about. I think he's lying, yo. He's been listening with one plug in his ear." The driver tried to come up with some sort of defense, but quickly abandoned all efforts. He sank into his seat. "Ever since I was a kid," he said, "I knew something was wrong. Of course, every kid steals and lies, but I noticed that when I did, I didn't feel any remorse or guilt over it like the other kids would. My teenage years were difficult. I stole and tricked people a lot. As I've grown older, I have realized that this behavior is not a good way to treat other people, and it's made my life worse, since it's kept me from connecting to people on a deeper level, but often I can't help it. It's not that I want to. I don't even realize I'm doing it until I'm doing it, or until someone points it out to me." Somewhat pouting, he turned to the people in the back. "I hope you guys forgive me. I won't do anything like that again, and I hope you guys won't let me have any more snacks or something like that." A silence fell over the bus, starkly contrasting the roar of the thunder outside. Suddenly, Cap said, "I don't know, man. That's some sneaky stuff. All this time, we've been sitting without thoughts, and you've had distractions. It's unfair, man." He got an endorsing nod from Tattoo. "Yeah, if he gets to, not think and stuff, we shouldn't have to either. I don't think he should get to smoke." "Maybe," said Cap reflectively. "Not an easy call," said Sweatpants. Suit held up his hands disarmingly. "In moments like these, I think of the inspiring minister Desmond Tutu of South Africa. who forgave the servicemen of the apartheid regime for their atrocities. Now, if he could forgive them, surely we can forgive this man for screwing us over a little. I mean, we all do it from time to time." No one, including the mystery man, could deny the truth in that. The passengers lightened up, and the driver was so relieved that he got up and went all the way over to them to offer his gratitude, quickly grabbing a Musketeer's bar and a Mountain Dew on the way back to his seat. The man stared expressionlessly at the driver as he sat down and ripped open his chocolate treat, devouring it in a matter of seconds. Cap spoke. "We still gotta gut that joint, though." The man drew a smile that quickly disappeared, rolling the joint between his fingers, inspecting it from behind the shades. "No, this isn't gutting we're talking about. This is dissection."
Swirling